She was suspended from her job. Not for being late, not for making a mistake, but for speaking Somali to her grandmother during a quiet moment at work. What happened next sparked a movement. Hit subscribe if stories like this matter to you, and tell us in the comments, where in the world are you listening from right now? Let's begin. The lighting at Juniper and Ash was always warm, like the golden hour trapped inside crystal glass. Every table was spaced just enough for quiet power to fill the room, the kind of silence that cost $37.00 for a plate of tuna tartare and made you speak in half of even if you were angry. The bar counter gleamed like a showroom. The flatware was imported from somewhere you couldn't pronounce without checking twice. The staff, of course, were dressed in black from collar to sole, in visible elegance. Layla Hussein adjusted the cuff of her sleeve just beneath her apron and polished the rim of a coupe glass. Her dark eyes scanned the room with a kind of attention that's learned, not taught. The attention of someone who knew exactly how long to hold a guest's gaze before retreating, how to disappear between steps, how to be gracious without ever being familiar. Her hijab was a soft smoky gray today, wrapped neatly. Her shoes made no sound on the concrete floor. This was year 2 for her at Juniper and Ash, and still, she didn't know if anyone here could pronounce her name without hesitating. It was late afternoon on a Thursday. Rain ticked against the full-length windows like a lazy metronome. The pre-dinner lull had settled in, that rare moment when the servers prepped for the storm while the managers scrawled quietly in their offices, pretending to work. A tray of chilled glassware rested behind the bar. Layla leaned over, inspecting each for prints that didn't exist. Her fingers were moving more out of rhythm than purpose. Then her phone buzzed once, deep in her apron pocket. A small vibration, subtle enough that no one noticed. She glanced at the screen. The name glowed in soft letters, Ayo. Her lips tugged upward slightly, the kind of smile she only used in private. Layla moved just behind the espresso machine into the narrow alcove between the back bar and the wine rack. It wasn't technically off the floor, but it was quite tucked. No guests could see her here. She answered, voice low, soft. Hey ayo, she said in Somali. Makunai ha wan fiknai hawelwelin wexan kusu wakea makan damio, okay? Wan kujeklai. 30 seconds, maybe 40. No drama, no laughter, just the musical quiet of someone checking on their grandmother, someone trying to be present across 2 continents. She ended the call, tucked her phone away, and stepped back into the dining room. She didn't see the woman near the entryway. Margot Ellingson stood near the hostess stand in a pearl-colored wool coat, holding a matcha drink with collagen powder floating visibly in the foam. Her hair was silver in that curated, intentional way, bobbed, sharp, and expensive. The kind of woman who wore silent wealth like a second skin. She had arrived early for her reservation, waiting on a driver who was now 4 minutes late. As Layla passed by, returning to her polishing station, Margot's eyes followed her. Not curious, not confused, just slightly tight. Her lips pressed together. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Layla moved through her section, brought still water to table 2, checked the candles at table 5. She didn't notice anything unusual. The room looked the same, smelled the same, hummed with that curated calm the restaurant paid so much to maintain, but something shifted. A silence that was just a touch heavier than before. When Kendra passed by, clipboard in hand, she didn't greet Layla like she usually did. Just a quick nod and moved on. One of the junior servers, Mason, the one still in training, asked Layla softly, "That language you spoke just now, what was that?" She blinked. "Somali," she said. "My grandmother." Mason gave a polite nod, like he was acknowledging a bird flying overhead. He didn't respond, just turned and straightened a stack of menus that were already perfectly aligned. Layla didn't think much of it, not really. She continued on. The lull was over now, people arriving for early dinners. Coat check slowly backing up. She welcomed a party of 3, brought out cocktail menus, complimented someone's earrings. Her voice had returned to its professional tone, warm but reserved. The earlier call felt like a whisper in a dream, barely there. It wasn't until the shift ended that she sensed something solid underneath all the small signs. Her locker felt colder, the room quieter. Her co-workers' goodbyes were brief. Still, she didn't overthink it. Rain had a way of dampening everything, including conversation. People were just tired, probably. Layla slipped on her coat, pulled her scarf closer to her jaw, and stepped out into the lot behind the restaurant. The sky was still gray, mists lifting gently above the streetlights. As she walked to her car, she pulled out her phone and called her grandmother back. I'm heading home now, she said, switching gently between Somali and English like she always did. Is the power back? She smiled as her grandmother talked about the fuse box, about the neighbor who brought sweetbread, about a distant cousin who called but talked too long. Layla laughed. Her voice sounded like her, soft, real, unfiltered, and in that moment, under a fog-dimmed Los Angeles sky, she felt nothing unusual. She didn't know, not yet, that she had already become a problem. She didn't know the sentence she spoke, in a language tied to home, to love, had been heard by someone who didn't understand it and therefore feared it. Not because it was wrong, but because it wasn't meant for them. Layla showed up 10 minutes early the next morning like she always did. The sun had returned, but the air still held a wet chill. She walked through the employee entrance, slipped on her apron, checked her section, and tightened her headscarf in the mirror next to the lockers. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. No one said anything exactly. No one needed to. She passed Milo, who usually gave her a nod and a quiet morning L. This time he just kept organizing silverware. Mason, the trainee, offered a tight-lipped smile before ducking behind the bar. Someone had already set table 6, her usual job, without telling her. It was subtle, too subtle to accuse, but unmistakable. Layla brushed it off the way she'd been taught to, not by anyone specific, but by the world. Smile, focus, adjust, blend. She carried a tray of glassware to the back and started stacking ramekins when Mason spoke behind her. So, Somali? Is that like Arabic? She turned, catching his expression, wide-eyed, polite, definitely not curious enough to care about the answer. No, she said evenly. Different language family, different region. Oh, he blinked, pretending to absorb that. Cool. He left it there, thankfully, but the residue clung. She could feel it, the low-grade discomfort of being explained. Again, of existing as a footnote in someone else's world. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from Tasha. You good? You seem quiet. Leela didn't respond right away, just locked her screen and slipped it away. The shift began. Guests flowed in like they always did, trailing perfume and assumption. She brought menus, poured still water, adjusted chairs, nodded at dietary restrictions. Her body moved on instinct, years of polished efficiency guiding each step. But inside there was a static hum. That's why, when a busser tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Kendra wants to see you in the office," she didn't flinch. She just wiped her hands on her apron and walked. The office was narrow, white-walled, too clean to feel human. A fake plant in the corner, a poster that read "Diversity Drives Innovation" next to a dusty Keurig. Kendra sat behind her desk, lips pursed, eyes flicking to the side as Leela entered. "Hey," she said, "come on in. Shut the door?" Leela sat, hands folded, back straight. Kendra exhaled slowly. "This isn't formal, just wanted to check in. How are you doing?" "I'm fine," Layla replied. "Is there something I should know?" Kendra looked down at her screen, tapped a few keys unnecessarily, then said, "We had some feedback from a guest." Layla tilted her head slightly. "What kind of feedback?" There was a guest yesterday who felt uneasy. Kendra paused, eyes scanning Layla's face for a reaction. They overheard a conversation you had during your shift. Layla waited. You mean the call with my grandmother? Yes. Kendra cleared her throat. They weren't sure what was being said. It made them uncomfortable. Layla stared at her. Because I was speaking Somali? I'm not saying... Kendra hesitated. It's not about the language itself. It's about how it made the guest feel. Layla sat still. And how did it make them feel? They expressed that it felt out of place, Kendra said, choosing each word like it might explode. We want our guests to feel safe. Predictability is part of our experience. That line hung in the air like a smoke alarm no one turned off. Layla blinked. Are you suggesting my voice, in my grandmother's language, made someone feel unsafe? I'm not saying that, Kendra said quickly. Just that we have to be mindful of perception. So perception now dictates whether I belong here. Layla, I wasn't on the floor. I wasn't loud. I wasn't speaking to a guest. I spoke to my grandmother for 30 seconds behind the bar during a lull. Kendra nodded, pretending to take it in. But her hands were already moving, pulling out a file, adjusting a form, like a decision had already been made. We're going to place you on temporary leave while we review your role here. It's not disciplinary, just a pause. To assess. Pause, Layla echoed. For what? For brand alignment. Layla stood up. Got it. Layla, this isn't personal. It never is, she said. That's how people get erased. She opened the door quietly and stepped out. Behind her, the espresso machine hissed, the clink of a spoon on porcelain, the world continuing, as if nothing had just shifted. No one looked at her when she walked out of the office, not really. Milo was folding napkins into careful squares, his shoulders tighter than usual. Mason avoided eye contact completely. One of the hostesses glanced up from her podium, then quickly looked back down like she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to witness. Leela moved past them all with the calm grace that had become second nature. She went to the back, untied her apron, folded it neatly, and hung it on the hook by her locker. Her name tag still clung to it, silver and smudged. She didn't take it with her. Outside, the sun had returned, sharp and indifferent. The rain from yesterday was gone, and with it the comforting blur of gray. Now the world was high-def, too clear, too honest. She got into her car and didn't start it, just sat there, hands still, eyes blank. The windshield reflected her face faintly in the glare. She looked fine. That was the worst part. She looked completely fine, like someone who had just finished a normal day. Not someone who had been politely asked to step outside the world she'd built for herself. It wasn't even rage. It was something smaller, quieter, something that sat between her lungs and refused to move. She pulled out her phone and called her grandmother. Ayeyo, she said gently. How are you today? I'm good, my heart, her grandmother said in Somali. I made flatbread this morning. Too much again. The neighbor took some. Do you want me to freeze some for you? Layla smiled. Do you always make too much? That's how you feed people. They talked about the weather in Minnesota, about a cousin getting married in July, about how the mosque near their house was being repainted. Layla didn't mention the meeting, or the leave, or the words brand alignment. Instead, she asked about the papaya tree in the backyard, and whether it had survived the frost. Still standing, her grandmother said, but quiet, like it's thinking. When the call ended, Layla sat in her car a little longer, letting the quiet settle. Her mind wandered, not forward, but back. She was 9 again, sitting in a public school hallway in Minneapolis, holding a dictionary in her lap. The teacher had told her to translate what she was trying to say, but Layla didn't know how. She knew what she meant. She just didn't have the words in the language they wanted, so she stayed quiet. For months. At home, she spoke freely in Somali. sang songs, read prayers, told jokes. At school, she only spoke when she was certain her English sounded like everyone else's. Not correct, not even fluent, just neutral. I didn't speak until I could sound like I belonged. That sentence had lived in her ever since. She got home, dropped her keys in the bowl by the door, turned off her phone, made tea, but forgot to drink it. Tasha texted around 5. Tasha, you want to talk? Layla, maybe. Not sure what I'd say. Tasha, you don't need to say anything. I'll meet you. I got cake. They met an hour later at a tiny bakery Tasha liked on Pico, the kind with mismatched mugs and a community bulletin board covered in old band flyers. Tasha was already there, sitting with 2 rum raisin slices and 2 paper cups of decaf. Layla sat down slowly. Tasha slid one of the plates toward her. You haven't been eating right, I can feel it. Layla cracked a small smile. You can feel it? I have cake-based intuition. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that only exists between people who've worked the same double shifts, and smiled through the same subtle humiliations. Finally, Layla spoke. I didn't yell. I wasn't rude. I wasn't even on the floor. Tasha nodded. But you said something they didn't understand. And that's enough. I was talking to my grandmother. They don't care. They love our food, just not our voices. That one hit. They keep telling us it's about image, Layla said. But the image is always them. Tasha sighed. They want color in the decor, not in the sound. They ate slowly. The cake was dry. Layla didn't finish hers. As they got up to leave, Tasha paused. I overheard her, she said. Layla turned. Who? That woman, the one with the matcha. She was standing near the service station when you took the call. After you walked away, she told the hostess she didn't like whatever that language was. Said it broke the atmosphere. Layla stared at her. I wasn't being loud. I know. I wasn't saying anything bad. I know. But that was enough. Tasha didn't answer. She didn't need to. As they stepped outside, the wind picked up, brushing against Layla's scarf. So it wasn't just perception, she said quietly. It was permission. Someone gave them permission to erase me. And now it had begun. It started with a paragraph. Tasha had posted it anonymously in a private Facebook group for hospitality workers in Los Angeles. Nothing dramatic, no names, no accusations, just a simple post, written like someone who had seen too much and finally stopped shrugging it off. Coworker got pulled off the floor for speaking Somali to her grandmother. Not loud, not public, just didn't fit the vibe. This is a fusion restaurant, BTW, with Somali spiced lamb on the menu. Let that sit. She didn't expect it to go far. Maybe a few likes, a few comments, some mutual frustration. By noon, the post had over 100 shares. By 4 p.m. it was on Twitter. Someone had screenshotted it and added, "This happened at Juniper and Ash in Santa Monica. They serve flavors from around the world, just not the people who come with them. Language is not threat." That was the match. In hours, the hashtag started to multiply. Speak your mother tongue? Fusion but not inclusion. We see you, Layla. Language is not threat, Layla. Didn't know any of this right away. She was still in her apartment, ignoring her phone, sitting barefoot on the kitchen floor with a half-eaten tangerine in one hand and a mug of cold tea in the other. She hadn't checked her email. She hadn't responded to anyone. She had only texted Ayo that morning. I'm okay, just resting. But by that night, her name was everywhere. Someone had guessed the restaurant. Then someone else confirmed it. Former employees began chiming in with their own vague, familiar stories. Yelp reviews began pouring in, not about the food, but about the silence, about the discomfort of watching a system pretend it wasn't designed to exclude. Came here for the Thai basil risotto, left with the taste of colonialism, loved the plating, hate the politics. 1 star for hypocrisy, served medium rare. Photos of the menu began circulating with lines circled in red ink, global flavors, local feel. Comments scrawled across it like graffiti. Who's local? Only local if you sound like them. Back inside the restaurant, things were unraveling. A hostess quit mid-shift. A line cook walked out after a guest made a racist joke and no one said anything. The general manager sent a staff-wide email titled, "Let's Remember Professionalism," which only made things worse. Even Kendra seemed to be cracking. Staff said she looked pale, distracted. She had stopped giving eye contact in the hallway. But the internet didn't stop. Layla's inbox filled. Messages from strangers, journalists, activists, former co-workers, even a writer from Bon Appetit. She didn't answer any of them. Until her grandmother called. "Your face is on my tablet," Aya said in Somali. Did something bad happen? Layla sat on the couch, the tangerine still in her hand. "I lost my job, Aya, because I spoke to you." "That's all?" Silence on the other end. Then, "That's not a reason. I know." "I didn't do anything wrong," Layla said softly. "You don't have to tell me that," her grandmother replied. "Tell them." Layla opened her phone and stared at the blank tweet box for a long time. She didn't write a rant. She didn't write a manifesto. Just the truth. "My name is Layla. I was placed on leave from a restaurant in Santa Monica after a guest complained that I spoke Somali to my grandmother during a quiet moment at work. I wasn't loud. I wasn't disrespectful. I wasn't breaking a rule. I just broke a pattern." She hit post. Within an hour, it had 3,000 likes. By morning, 40,000. People flooded the comments. Some told her to sue. Some said they had cried reading it. Others shared their own stories. "My mom was told to stop speaking Vietnamese on the hospital floor. I got written up at work for talking Tagalog to my cousin during a break. My dad pretends he doesn't have an accent because someone mocked him once." A Somali student in Toronto said she played Layla's post in a presentation on identity. A woman in Dallas said she hadn't spoken Spanish at work in years. Now she might start again. Then came the reposts. A Black Muslim rights group, a language preservation nonprofit, a group for second-generation daughters. By the end of the day, someone made a TikTok with her tweet over footage of spices being poured into a pan. The caption, "They want our food, not our families." Kendra sent Layla an email that evening. The subject line, "We'd like to talk." She didn't open it. Not yet. She stood on her balcony watching the city breathe. She hadn't meant to start anything, she had just wanted to exist. In her voice, in her skin, in her language. But sometimes, that's the most revolutionary thing you can do, just speak. The office where they met was too quiet. Not the good kind, not like the mosque at sunrise or the huma her grandmother stove on a sleepy morning. This silence was engineered. Padded walls, soft carpeting, frosted glass. Designed to keep sound in, but also to keep people out. Layla sat across from two people she used to call her bosses. Mr. Roth, the restaurant's legal counsel, wore a slate gray suit and a tie that looked expensive but forgettable. Kendra, in contrast, looked like someone who had slept in her makeup. Her blouse was wrinkled, her eyes strained. Roth began, "We want to thank you for agreeing to meet. We're aware of the recent attention and hope to resolve the matter respectfully. Our goal is to offer clarity and closure." He pushed a folder toward her. Layla didn't touch it. "Our proposal," he continued, "includes a public statement of apology and 3 months severance. In exchange, we ask that you agree to refrain from further public comment moving forward. Standard ND." Layla looked at the folder, then at Kendra, then back at Roth. "That's not clarity," she said. "That's quiet." Roth blinked. "I'm sorry." "You're not offering resolution," she said calmly. "You're offering silence." Kendra shifted uncomfortably. "Layla, we truly regret how this unfolded." "You regret the consequences," Layla said, "but not the decision or the thinking behind it." She turned to Roth. "You didn't fire me because I did something wrong. You fired me because someone didn't like not understanding me." Kendra opened her mouth, closed it, then finally said, We were trying to protect the experience. The experience of who? Layla asked. Silence again, but this time it was theirs. I'll accept your apology, Layla said, if it's honest. I want it public, I want it clear. I want you to say I was removed from my job because I spoke my mother tongue, not because I was unprofessional, not because I broke a rule, because someone didn't want to hear me. Roth looked uncertain. That could expose? That's the point, she said. Kendra exhaled. We'll issue the statement. That afternoon, the restaurant posted it on all their official platforms. We acknowledge that the decision to place Layla Hussein on leave following a guest's discomfort with her use of Somali, her native language, was a failure of our values. We recognize that language is identity, and no one should be penalized for expressing love to family in a language they were born into. We apologize to Layla and to the communities we failed to serve with integrity. We are reviewing our internal training and policies moving forward. The comments came fast. Some people applauded the move. Others said it was too little too late. A few called it performative. One tweet read, "They only listened because she made them look bad." But Layla didn't care anymore. She didn't need the world to applaud her. She just needed to hear her own voice again and trust that it was still hers. She didn't return to Juniper and Ash, not even once. The check cleared a week later. She took part of the money and did what she had wanted to do for years, but never had the courage or the space. She rented a small kitchen in the community center 4 blocks from her apartment, painted the walls in warm ochre and deep teal, named it Afka Huyo Kitchen. No one had to speak English there if they didn't want to. Every Wednesday afternoon she ran a cooking class for girls from the neighborhood, many of them first-gen Somali, Ethiopian, Guatemalan. Some quiet, some curious, some defiant. They chopped onions with 2 big knives, measured cumin with their palms, giggled through dough that refused to fold, and Layla, always calm, always patient, guided them in both English and Somali, letting her voice rise and fall the way it wanted to. One afternoon, she was showing them how to fold sambusa wrappers when her phone rang. She wiped her hands on a towel and answered. "Yeah," she said, smiling. The girls looked up. She pressed speaker. Her grandmother's voice filled the room, clear and proud. "Did they like the ones with lentils?" she asked in Somali. "They did," Layla replied. "I think they love your recipe more than mine." A ripple of laughter. She didn't mute the call. She didn't walk away. She just stood there, among bubbling oil and spilled flour and smudged counters, speaking in a language that had once been used against her. This time no one flinched. No one furrowed their brow. No one walked out. And when she hung up, she didn't lower her voice again, didn't shrink her name, didn't translate herself for comfort. Because now, she wasn't speaking to prove anything. She was speaking because it was hers. Thank you so much for staying with Layla's story until the very end. If this moved you, please subscribe for more powerful stories and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters.